Welcome to Sales is Not a Dirty Word, the podcast that shows you how to convert 8 out of 10 sales conversations without acting like a douchebag. I'm your host, innovative sales coach, Aleasha Bahr, the creator of the Black Sheep Sales Method. Because if it's a fit, it's a fact, and there is no selling involved. If you're a service provider selling your own service and you're ready to sell differently than the mainstream status quo and win more sales without pressure, pitching, or pretending to be someone else, then this is for you. If you want to know more about the Black Sheep Sales Method, then go to Aleashabahr.com. This episode is with Israel Duran. Israel Duran is a sought-after business growth partner, speaker, and trainer who empowers purpose-driven leaders and corporate organizations to build profitable, impactful ventures grounded in servant leadership. With expertise in business, finance, and the art of meaningful communication, Israel has inspired thousands of entrepreneurs and corporate teams worldwide. His mission is to help leaders leverage their skills and knowledge to create sustainable businesses that drive positive change while staying true to their core values. And he has a wild story, so you know I love those. And it definitely started with him being a black sheep. So I'm really excited for you all to meet Israel. Let's go. Welcome to the big show. Sales is not a dirty word.
I'm super excited to be on here because you are correct. Growing up, I have some stories, which I'm excited to dive into.
Yeah. And the stories, what I really love about this, you guys, is the message from the stories that I took from it, and I hope that you take from it as a sign for anyone who thinks that they might not be not that special. Like you might not really, maybe sometimes you think you are, but you're like, nah, not really though, who am I? Who am I to think that I could do something big or offer something? And that's, just a little teaser. So Israel, when you first were growing up, you were not so much of a rule follower, huh?
That's 100%. I was the class clown, as they called me. I was a troublemaker. And that's what I knew for a long time because of my identity. My identity was in the line. I went through some tough things as a child, and I carried that on my shoulder, as they say. And I wouldn't apply myself. And, funny thing is, now I work with primarily speakers, and I train speakers and entrepreneurs. But growing up, I was a stuttering boy. And I would fight on purpose, like we discussed, to get into in-school suspension rather than present in front of my class.
Yeah, I mean, that's some serious avoidance techniques. Creative. I feel there was some creativity in there. So then you had like a situation when you were 7. This was like your first kind of wake up call, so to speak. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. When I was 7, I was in a place in Monte Cristi, Dominican Republic. It's a place in the Caribbean. And my sister had lost an earring inside of one of the pools. It was like an oval pool. And I tried to be Superman and jumped in to try to get the earring, but I didn't know how to swim at the time. And I drowned. I actually drowned in that pool and I died. I was clinically I was not breathing. Like my soul came outside of my body. Didn't know anything about religion, God, none of that stuff. I didn't have that upbringing. My mother at the time, Roman Catholic. My father had passed at a young age, which I can get into later. But my mom would have repeated the cycle of losing 2 of her most closest family members, her husband in 1993, and then her son again in this terrible accident. And I remember as I was dying, my soul came outside and I was traveling in what I can remember and how I could feel in the most loving, peaceful, protected wave that I can even explain with words. I felt the best that I was feeling when I was dying, as weird as that sounds. And I knew that I was about to get in front of God. Even though I didn't know any concept about God, didn't know anything about God or anything like that. But I just knew that I was about to meet the Creator. And I wasn't afraid. I was actually at peace. And then all of a sudden, I'm back into my body. A man had jumped into the water. This man pulls me out of the water. I'm outside of the water. I'm trying to gasp for air, I'm coughing up water, trying to breathe, get back my air. And I turn around, Aleasha, and to see who it was, and there was no one to be found. There was
But your
no one to be
sister
found.
saw him. He was real.
My sister was there. My sister was actually the one that was screaming and crying, "Someone save my brother, someone save my brother." And this man, I didn't see his face directly, but my sister said that he had black hair, blue eyes. He was Caucasian. And by the way, this is in Dominican Republic, in a place that's by Haiti, by the way. It's like the border of Haiti. There's not a lot of
Yeah,
Caucasian
Caucasian.
people there.
Yeah.
Uh, and so he just jumped in and out, and it was like he was on a mission. No one knew who the guy was. No one knew no one knew who he was then. No one knows who he is now. And I remember where I was trying to find this guy because I had something in my heart that I wanted to just say thank you to the guy. I wanted to give him a hug, say
Sure.
thank you,
Yeah.
shake his hand. Because I was, this guy just saved my life, right?
Totally.
And I wasn't able to have that opportunity. So from that moment, I just thanked God. And I felt, as weird as it sounds, I felt like I would speak and then God would hear me. And then I felt like God would speak and I would hear him. And I just had an amazing connection with God since that moment, because I believe that man deposited something inside of me, when I died and I came back.
So, but you kind of didn't really give it too much credence. You went about your life and ignored all of it. What did you do after school? Like, what career did you pursue?
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% correct. Didn't think much of it just after the fact, even though it's like a mark in my life. And after that, I grew up, but I went back. I remember I was pursuing to become a police officer.
Oh,
That's what I wanted to be as a cop. Yeah, I wanted to be a
huh.
cop as a child, and I wanted to work for the FBI.
Hmm.
That's why I went for my criminal justice background, my criminal justice bachelor sociology, and I went for my master's in cybersecurity, because at the time when I was going to school, I had heard an FBI agent talk about how the FBI was hiring, people with cybersecurity backgrounds. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna get my master's. I'm gonna work for the FBI, and that's really the trajectory that I took. But then when I graduated, I didn't go into the FBI because I got married and first child, and so I didn't want to be like sent anywhere. So I went to the private sector, started my own business, and that's where I kind of got into the coaching and space and business development and all of that stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
I thought you were still kind of playing small though for a while until you had another come to.
Oh yeah,
you're
you're 100% correct. I was playing small until 2018, I would say. October 5th, 2018 is when I got into a car accident. And this was what really came full circle for me, because my second daughter, Annabelle, was born on September 1st. And so this was September 5th, 2018, where my car accident happened. And I should have really died in that accident. Like that was bad. That was really, really bad. Like my car went, I was driving a Honda Pilot at the time. And it's a top heavy car. For those of you that, if you've ever seen a Honda Pilot.
Yeah.
Like when I crossed the 3 lanes of the highway, my car literally was going to flip over. It was lit. And because I did a 90-degree turn going about 75 miles per hour.
Ugh.
So a top heavy car like that, your car's going to flip.
You're flipping. Yeah.
My car was legit about to flip over, because what had happened was I was driving, going to a farm. Actually, I was going to go pick up something for my wife, and in the middle of the compartment, some water had spilled, and I had to move some stuff to the passenger side. I put my head down literally for like a split second, and when I look up, because I hear a bump, like I hear my car like a bump, and I look up, and when I look up, I'm in the middle. I'm in like the middle green. In Connecticut, we have the highways, like sometimes they're separated with like grass.
Okay.
And I'm in like the middle of the highway where you got upcoming traffic this way and traffic. Yeah. And when I look up, I had to make the split decision to either continue to go straight and have my car hit like this intersection and then have my car being risked of being flipped over going onto the upcoming oncoming traffic.
Oncoming traffic, yeah.
Or I had to take a hard right, but I literally had less than a second. It was like a millisecond.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think about it, Aleasha. Like when I looked up, it was like God said, take a hard right. And I don't doubt that voice when I hear it. I literally took that hard right, even though in my mind, if I was thinking about what I was doing, I wouldn't have took the hard right.
Hmm.
Because if I would have, that hard right that I took put me back on the highway, we have like 3 or 4 18-wheelers driving past me. It's like, it's
Yeah.
not good. But I took that hard right and my car literally skid. It was supposed to flip over.
Yeah.
Something weighed my car down. It was coming up and something said, it just put my car down. I crossed 3 lanes of the highway. I literally hit the railing perfectly. My car, like I crashed and then it parks by itself on the side, missing
Yeah.
every car, by the way.
Wow.
When I hit, everything went white, everything came back. I came outside the car was smoking. I didn't have anything happen to me, thank God. I had a scratch here, a scratch here.
Yeah.
And this is where it really got my attention. An 18-wheeler stopped behind me, like right behind me. And there was a smaller little car that stopped in front of me. This gentleman that was driving and saw the whole thing. He came out of the car and he comes running to me. He doesn't even ask me how I'm doing. He just comes running to me and he says, dude, you hit that railing, and he proceeds to curse, effing perfectly. If you would have hit that railing any other way, your car would have flipped over the railing and gone into the lake. Because in the pictures, I took a couple pictures. In the pictures that I took, you can't see the lake, but it's literally right behind like the railing. Because if I would have hit my car would have hit on the side, it just would have natural physics, it would have came over. And when he said that to me, Aleasha, I literally felt like it was like everything came to that moment like, dude, it's time to release what you got inside of you. Like, stop, like come on, like stop playing small, release what it is that you need to do. And within 3 days from that car accident, I launched my third business. Within 3 weeks from that car accident, I launched my first book within 2 languages, a book that was supposed to be released a year and a half later.
Well, and I think something that was really interesting about like when we talked was that you had resisted showing up in a bigger way because you didn't want to just build your name. There's something that feels like egotistical about it. To put yourself out there in a big way, like, you know, that whole who am I and is this just for me? And there's something so important for anybody listening to realize that like it's not really about that. And if you're worried about that, you're probably the perfect person to be showing up big because it's not about your ego. And
100%.
Yes.
100%.
So, I mean, what do you think stops people from showing up? Is it the fear that they're going to look dumb or like, what is it?
I believe there's several different reasons. For me, as I could only speak for what I was thinking through in that season of my life. For me, as weird as this sounds, I was questioning if I was truly called or if this was just my idea. Is this just me? Is this just me wanting to do this, or is this really is this a calling?
Yeah.
Like, I'm a big believer that many are called, but few are chosen. The way I interpret that is many hear a call or they see a void in the marketplace that they can speak to and use their voice to fill the void, right? But few choose to actually step out and do it. And what I didn't understand was like the fact that I was feeling the way I was feeling, that, you know what, I know I'm called for more. I know that I'm supposed to share my expertise, my education, my experience with others. That feeling is actually the confirmation that you're not just called, but you are chosen. Because what I've learned is most people, and you're an expert at sales, you help organizations and companies develop their sales pipelines, take their business to the next level. And every business needs sales. I also found out that every business also needs to have that origination point and of what inspired for them to actually launch, because one of the things I've learned is that everything will be attested back to people's original intent. Like if an organization starts, a nonprofit starts, a for-profit business starts, whatever that organization's original intent, things will be shaken in the trajectory of that business to test what their true intention is. And for me, my intentions were pure because once I came into the car accident, and I believe God gave me a confirmation, like, dude, it's like, come on, like, are you going to do it or am I going to have to go get somebody else? I was like, no, I got you. I heard you loud and clear. It's like you get to the car accident that I get into and you also died at the age of 7. It's kind of like, come on, dude, like, what are you waiting for?
What else do you need?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, since doing that, like when you say the origination point, a lot of people, their origination point is I want to make money. Like I'm thinking of every tech
Mm,
startup ever who's like, you know what? I want to make a widget or a software and be a tech billionaire, millionaire, whatever. So you're saying that like when that's the driving force, the trajectory looks very different.
you have an unfair advantage. One of the laws I love to teach is on the law of impact,
Hmm.
right? And the law of impact is really also the prerequisite to truly building generational wealth, because the whole point of business is to serve people. And one of the names of our mastermind is called Profit with Purpose, to make a profit, but also do it with purpose to serve people.
Hmm.
But the whole point of business is to have an exit strategy, right? It's to really
Hmm.
build something that's this not only for you, right? That you could pass it down. But one of the common mistakes that I see business owners make is that they're just trying to go after monetization. They don't really understand the law of impact. They don't understand the 4 steps to actually create an impact and monetize. So I would love to go over that with your permission, but
It
it's
sounds valuable. It sounds like it ultimately, like, so this also aligns with a podcast episode that I recorded with someone recently about how, company cultures need to shift to focus on the employees, and that there's a lot of data that shows when the focus is on the benefit of the employees, you make more money. So like
100%.
if you need that to be the excuse or whatever, then there's plenty of data that shows that when you prioritize things like impact and purpose, that you do make more money.
Yes, you always do, because it directly impacts and increases the performance of the individual. Once you increase their performance, and this empowering people with their sales team, it increases their productivity. And then once you increase someone's productivity at an individual level from an employee perspective, because they're your most valuable asset,
There.
then you increase your bottom line profit. And that's how it works. And the law of impact is like, and when I teach the 4 steps, people typically are like, oh yeah, I know these 4 steps, but to really put them in the right order is what's most important.
Okay.
And typically begin with education. That's step number one. Everything begins and starts with education. So before even trying to make an impact, we have to be willing to get the education so we can understand what we're looking to get into, what market we're looking to get into, so we can then reverse engineer how to actually do it. Like, this is not just, and this is why I love when people actually become the person, because people that focus on monetization, they always ask the question, what do I need to do? People that focus on impact and true legacy wealth, they ask questions like, who do I need to become?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's very different. And I've heard, a lot of theories around this, like identity is such an important piece because if you already thought of yourself as somebody with a 7-figure company, just as an example, or 8-figure company, what decisions would you make, and how would that look different from what you're doing now? Just as like a simpler rudimentary example, which it sounds like you're kind of mentioning, like, okay, how does my brain shift so that I can literally see things differently and make different choices from a different place, rather than someone just, people always wish that somebody could just tell them what to do, but I mean, there's no shortage of information in the world. Okay. We all have access to a lot
Yes.
of information.
It's especially with AI. I love what we're emphasizing here, because if people truly want to unlock success, the formula of success is not do, be, and then have. People say, as long as I do, and then once I become, then I'll have. That's not the way it works. It
Hmm.
typically works with be, do, have. First, you need to become the person that will do and create the things, so then you can have the things that you need, want, and desire. And a lot of people don't like that, right? Because they want the microwave, they want the fast way. One of my favorite books is the tortoise and the hare.
Yeah.
It's a children's book.
Yeah.
However, the turtle always wins because the turtle is willing to be consistent. Where the hare is trying to just go fast, but they get distracted. So this is very relevant in today's age, what we're talking about.
Well, and also I think the reason people want to do and then be is they want that external evidence that they are the person. So it's
Mm.
hard to be without the external evidence that you to confirm it, you know? So the idea of being that first and then the evidence follows feels very like counterintuitive to people, I think.
It does, because it goes against the status quo, but the mindset always precedes the manifestation. The mindset always precedes the manifestation. This is why education being the first step to impact is so important. And many times people get their education in different ways. They may study, they may go to school, they may invest in mentorship, they may learn from someone else, which is really the most uh, fastest and most effective way that you can learn anything in life. Why? Because going back to my history about when I didn't know how to swim, I got tired one day as I was older and I said, I'm going to learn how to swim. And the first step I took was that I hired a coach. I hired a coach to teach me how to swim. And the first thing that I focused on was I need to know what this coach believes and thinks about swimming.
Hmm,
So I literally asked him, I was like, what do you believe about swimming? When you swim, what do you think? Like, what are you thinking?
what an
Like, well,
interesting
what is
question.
your, yeah. And he was kind of taken back because I was like, well, I'm a coach too. This is the way that I do. He's like, no, this is what I think that I can flow. I think that I can swim. I think that I'm not going to drown. That never comes to my mind. I just focus on. So when I was learning how to swim, I was in the pool with my back, trying to float because I thought I didn't know how to float. And that was my thing. Like I didn't even know how to float. I didn't know how to swim. But I had to now change my thoughts. I was like, you know what? I can swim. I can float. And I'm in the water like I can float and I'm like drowning, right? And I would have to repeat that cycle over and over again until one day I had an epiphany and I was like, wait a second, I'm floating. And then once I learned how to start floating, then I said, you know what? I can swim. I can do a backstroke. I can, go from one side of the pool to the other without, tiring out. I can do this, right? And I started just have that mindset, the education. I can do this. I can do this. I started to be. Then I started to do. Then I started to have the multiple laps that I would run. And now I'm swimming. I'm like a little mini Michael Phelps. But everything starts with education. And I'm so glad that I had that advantage of saying, okay, what does this guy think? What does he believe? Because as long as I can get that mindset and I adapt it to mine,
Hmm.
I may not swim right away. I may not see the result right away. But if I could be consistent, it's going to, over time, it's going to help me to unlock that skill set.
Okay, so education's the first, and then what's number two?
Number two is what we call leverage tools. So, what is a leverage tool? A leverage tool is a tool, a system that allows for you to build rapport, build value in a certain market. So, before you try to monetize, what's more important is what is the system or the leverage tool that you need to really invest in, developing and like building for the market that you're looking to monetize in. Super important. A lot of people miss this point. We have a Facebook group of over 360K members. We have another group of over 3,000 members. We have our email list. We have over 75,000 emails and growing. Those are tools. Those are assets that are more valuable than just trying to monetize. It took years to build, right? It takes
Yeah,
time,
for sure.
but it's an asset. And when we focus on leverage tools, it gives us an advantage. And again, we're playing the game like a turtle, slow and steady, consistency, because we're not just in it to try to just monetize. We're in it to make an impact, and super important. So that's step number two.
Okay, so education, leveraging tools with consistency. What's number three?
Number three, once you naturally do step number three, or not step number two, step number three should naturally be birthed from you doing step number two. That's why I love the steps. And that's influence. Influence over a certain market, group of people, community, or organization. This is very important. Real quick story. There was this individual, great speaker, one of the best, and he built rapport with a certain organization. And the organization, he went through what I call the 3 steps of breakthrough. And that's number one, obscurity. Everyone that's going to build influence you have to be willing to go through obscurity. No one knows who you are.
Mhm.
Most people get discouraged because they're like, well, nobody knows who I am. This is not going to work. It happens for all of us. We all have to be willing to go through obscurity. Once you go past obscurity, the second step of breakthrough is going through what we call resistance. Now, resistance is where most people give up. Resistance is where most people throw in the towel. They say, this is not for me, because you'll get tested. Again, going back to that word tested, you'll be tested to your original intent. But if you're able to endure, if you're able to focus and you get past resistance, then you'll finally get through the acceptance. Okay. And this gentleman, this great speaker at an organization, he put in the time to go through obscurity. Nobody who knew who he was at the organization other than the CEO who brought him in. He started to build rapport. There was some resistance. Well, who's this guy? Well, I don't really know what this guy's about. He started to build that rapport. He started to go past the resistance, finally to a point where there was some acceptance, and he would actually be growing. He grew financially very well. But then he made a decision, which a lot of entrepreneurs make. He made a decision to pivot into another market, and he decided to put on his own events and into another industry. And he was surprised that the same results he was having in this organization here, he wasn't having with his own endeavor. And he got frustrated because he was like, "Why? I put all this work and I have over 15 years with this, and I'm over here launching this, and it's like I'm not getting breakthrough." And it was because he had to go back to understand he needed to go through some obscurity when you enter into the market. He needed to break through that resistance barrier so he can finally see acceptance. And he went back to education, right? I need to be educated for this new industry. I need to get some leverage tools for this new industry. Then that finally unlocked the influence over that market. So then he could now, step number 4, he could then now finally monetize. And then once he monetized, he was able to go ahead and now make a true impact. And these are the 4 steps to impact and to build generational wealth.
Well, I know that you have a hard stop and I want to respect your time. I thought that this was really valuable. And you guys, something that I love about this message is that every voice is important, not just one type of voice. And that if your voice is different, that's even more reason to please lean into this and start pursuing. If you never allow yourself to even start pursuing the education of what you want to do, or start pursuing the tools, it's because you're just so worried about whatever reason is holding you back, then the world will miss something that could have made a very big difference. So I hope that this calls to people, and I love that you gave a framework that people could follow to bringing their voice to fruition, so it doesn't feel like this nebulous, vague, pie in the sky thing. And so that's a great stopping point for us. And we've reached the end of yet another episode of Sales is Not a Dirty Word. Thanks again to Israel for coming on. And can you tell everyone how they can find out more about you and how they could work with you?
Yes, I just want to acknowledge what you said. If you have a voice, if you have a gift, make sure you get that gift out there. There's people looking for you, and it's just literally on the opposite side of your decision. If you want a free gift or resource of some of the principles that I talked about today, if you go to my website, israelduran.com, you'll be able to go ahead and access those at israelduran.com.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And if you found value in this, please share it with people, subscribe, leave a review. That stuff makes such a difference. And until next time.